Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by
Tyree. Welcome to Catch the Moment podcast. It's your boy, David Tyree. Got a super special guest. I'm right here in Glass House Studios in Vegas. Why? Because the heat is on and we're bringing it with my man, Jayson Atienza. Thanks for coming through today, bro.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, man.
Yo, I can't believe you just told me this is your first podcast, bro.
Yeah, it is my first podcast. You know, I don't know. I guess sometimes I get nervous a little bit about, you know, getting on stuff or whatever. And I was just saying that putting these headphones on, I'm like, damn, my voice sounds amazing.
Yeah. You sound like you're about to be a commercial, one of the little voiceover specialists right now.
That might be a next thing on my list.
We got to add more to the resume, man. We got to add more to the resume. So, you and I, we've been kicking it for a couple of years now, man. It's crazy how, me coming out of the athletic world, just digging back into the traditional marketplace and being able to connect with all kinds of people. But, of course, the Jersey roots. So, we're going to get back to, really what we're here for is the meaning behind the moment, right? At the end of the day, I really think you're just like one of the dopest artists I've ever seen. And I don't want to meet too many artists because I don't want anybody to come close to Jayson Atianza.
Oh, man, you're too kind, brother.
So, but ultimately, I'm like, man, this dude is dope. He's from Jersey. And we're going to get into some more of your story, but tell me, tell me what life was like growing up in good old Jersey, man. Because your story is intriguing and how you arrive to even not just to Vegas, but man, you done been some places and did some things.
Oh man, it's definitely been a whirlwind the past couple of years. But yeah, I mean, I was born in the Philippines. I came to Jersey when I was 2, so I grew up in Jersey. We lived
in what part of Jersey?
Jersey City.
Yeah, bro, that make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah, man, Chilltown, JC.
Yeah.
Grew up there. I was pretty much kind of, immersed in from hip hop to the urban culture to, sneakers, basketball. I mean, you name it. I mean, growing up, I was just, I was a big Knicks fan, big Giants fan. We
you got the right ones. Don't mess with the Jets, the Nets, and the Mets. I'm sorry, y'all. It's second-class citizens. Anybody who knows. But all love. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So growing up in Jersey City, I guess you can say I was kind of getting into a little trouble.
Yeah, go ahead. Give us a little dirty.
I was getting into trouble, in my young adolescence, and I ended up getting kicked out of my freshman year in high school in Jersey City.
Okay.
And so my parents sent me to live with my aunt and uncles in Edison, New Jersey.
Okay.
And
big shout to Edison.
and so yeah, I had to finish my high school years over there because they just wanted me to just complete everything and not get distracted by all the bull that was going around.
Listen, man, it's easy, so easy.
Yeah, and so yeah, throughout my my high school years, I was kind of, I don't know, I guess you can say, trouble always found me, right?
Okay.
For some reason, and as a teenager growing up, you always want to try to find yourself, fit somewhere into the world, right? Whether it's I guess I felt that I needed to get into trouble in order to
like a form of acceptance. I same thing. Actually, I think it was the 8th grade. I was on probation just because, I was trying to run with the cats who's getting into stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So everybody looking for they finding their way. We trying to find respect, right?
Exactly. I mean, I was 13 years old, and that's when I started really getting into graffiti and causing all kinds of mess or whatever, getting into all kinds of things.
Artistic law breaking.
Yeah,
it's all good.
Pretty much. I mean, and so I've always had an artistic background. Well, first off, I picked up art through my dad.
Oh snap!
When I was 5, we had a form of communication through the chalkboard because he was deaf and mute, and and so that's how we communicated. And
wow,
my dad had he back in the Philippines when he was growing up, he only had he only reached like second grade.
Okay.
Because back then, during World War II, his school got destroyed, and
Man.
so instead of him going back to school, he just started like helping his parents, my grandparents, out on the farm and all that. And he helped them do that so his sisters can go to college, get into education and all that. And so he was kind of doing his thing, making sure the family was right.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about real grown man decisions right here. Like as a kid,
yeah,
it's amazing how everybody's circumstances sometimes shapes decisions for us. Whereas, of course, we're in the land of immense opportunity.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But you know that about your so that's some pedigree right there.
No, I know, and like as far as like his education, like when he came to the U.S., like he became a welder. So he was working in a factory welding, and he was great at using his hands, and I think that's how I picked up the art.
Got it.
And the thing is, how he lost his hearing when he was 5. He had I think it was like a regular ear infection.
Okay.
And back then, they didn't have any money for medicine, so it was so he kind of
an ear infection turned into a loss of a sense.
Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of crazy how that.
Well, that's a gratitude moment. You just paused my soul right there. That's a gratitude moment, man, just to be able to have not just opportunities, but just, what we believe to be bare minimums, right? Especially in this wealthy nation. So you actually start cultivating the relationship with art through your relationship with your dad.
Yeah, I mean, he was my first art teacher, my first collaborator. We would always kick it like on the chalkboard and kind of just, that's how I picked up all that stuff. And I'm very fortunate that, that's how it started. And for me, that's why the visual language is such an important thing, and for me to communicate, I've always gravitated towards like something visual,
Listen, it's obviously, I think it just speaks on so many different levels, man. So you cultivate this relationship with art through relationship with your dad. You navigating, just life as a teenager. And like I said, we grew up in that, in the emergence of hip hop in that era, in 80s, 90s, right? So what would you say is like the turning point of maturity? And I think it's great that you're acknowledging how we find acceptance, especially as men, right? Like, we shooting our shot and whatever, and I grew up in this diverse town in Montclair that had everything going on. So I almost felt like, because sports was my avenue, that's what gave me the stability and acceptance by stepping into that community. It's not always as easy to gain that acceptance and confidence in other areas. So what was the turning point, whether it was, moving out of high school, Metuchen, like when did you kind of come into your own as you matured?
I think, probably when I was living in Edison, I got my first job at Menlo Park Mall at Cinnabon.
There you go. Big shout to listen, boy, if you know, That's about 1,500 calories right there, baby.
Oh, man, I would have like 4 Cinnabons a day. You know what I mean? Now, forget it.
Hey, listen, big shout to Ocho versus Science. That's back in the day when we was consuming calories.
Yeah. And I think that, I started getting my own independence when I started making my own money, right? I mean, I was playing sports in high school. I ran track and I played football. But once I got hired at Cinnabon, I was like, you know what? I think I need to just make money.
This bread is working out for me.
Yeah, no, totally. And I felt that like I couldn't rely on anyone. I just need to rely on myself in order if I wanted something. Yeah. Especially if I wasn't living at home with my parents or whatever. So I just felt like that independence helped me become who I am. Boom.
I can see it now. I can see it. So just obviously your working experience, began to create that confidence, stability. And because, like I said, I think especially in our generation, we had a lot more liberty, like as teenagers, out in the street, in your neighborhoods, taking buses, that some of our kids, they've never seen it done, right? So, all right. So, what's the shift toward, whether art is in the picture, or because I know that you have some experience. You work traditional marketplace style too. So art. I mean, I was pretty much kind of drawing throughout my
adolescence and, and teenage years or whatever. And I took a bunch of art classes in high school.
Was there a particular style that you
Actually, no, there wasn't. I just was like into everything. I mean, from, you know, like regular illustration to collage to, you know, I mean, you name it, you know, sculpture, printmaking. So I did all that in high school. And I remember it was my senior year, and you know, that was probably like the most nerve-wracking year of my life, because I felt like, oh, you know, now I have to figure out what college I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I was kind of torn, because coming from a very traditional Filipino background, you know, families want you to either become a doctor or a lawyer or engineer or something that, you know, they know that's going to make money, right?
Yeah.
And know that it's a lucrative career, because first generation, you know, Filipino, like being in the States, they want to make sure that you're successful.
We here to get established.
Yeah, totally.
Well, that's kind of one of my things about America being so dynamic, because, you know, America is an immigrant nation. Like I tell, you know, like once you settle, you're dealing with some of the grappings and the entitlements that, you know, like I said, the second or third generation, once a family is established, is totally different than the first generation, because you realize different opportunities that in America might not be where you came from, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, like when they say doctor, lawyers, engineer, like, you know, we need that. We need that stability.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, they're great fields and all, but like my passion wasn't there.
Boom. Absolutely.
That's the only thing, you know. And I know a lot of people that have kind of like made their families happy to go into those fields, and you know, they're like, but let me just go.
They forfeited something along the way.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to live my life because of someone else's dream for me. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
And so, so my senior year, you know, one of my art teachers, I just said, hey, I'm kind of struggling right now as far as like what colleges to apply to. She's like, well, have you ever thought about going into art? I was like, not really. Well, you're like one of my top students. Like, why don't you apply to half art colleges and half regular colleges, and then see what happens? And so she encouraged me to do that. So I did. And I ended up getting accepted into the School of Visual Arts in New York City.
Oh.
And, you know, I just went with my gut. And at that point I said, you know what, I'm so passionate about art. And I think, you know, when you have a passion for something, it'll take you to as far as you want to go. And so that mentality, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go do it.
Yeah.
I know the stigma of like, oh, you're going to be a starving artist or this and that. I'm like, you know what, that's fine, but I'm going to figure it out.
You're going to shoot your shot.
Yeah, I'm going to shoot my shot. You know, I'm going to just go do it. And, you know, it was just one of those things that, you know, I would say half of people's lives, they work, right?
Yeah.
I want to spend my whole life being able to like enjoy what I'm doing. Yep. So not thinking of work as work, and thinking of it as like, you know, just something that I do and play, and I mean, you name it. You know?
Yeah, and you're delivering value, and like I said, because you find meaning and like I said, purpose within that work, you know that there's value there, and you don't have to strive in your mind about, you know, how satisfied you are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like, it's almost like a tension in that both realities exist, right? So it's kind of like the athlete is a different form of an artist, right? He's a physical artist. And so, you know, I kind of acknowledge that tension, whereas the thought process of your parents and you know, because art and certain skills, like high performance skills, there's the demand for it, but maybe there's a smaller demand for it, right? So you have to be so great at what you do for it to become profitable. Like, and you have I think you had a fantastic approach, but you know, is that a reality? Maybe with your experience as an artist, and you're raising children, there's starving actors, there's folks, we know what the other side of the equation looks like. Is there some sense of balance in relation to that pursuit, or do you just feel like, you know what, just let the passion play out?
I mean, you know, I thought about it. I think that you know, going to art school, because I double majored in advertising and graphic design. And so, you know, I wasn't just a fine artist. You know what I mean? That's
called hedging your bets right there.
yeah, exactly. And so, you know, I was fortunate enough to be hired right out of school at one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world, BBDO,
Dope.
New York. And so, so yeah, I mean, it was kind of crazy because coming up as a student at School of Visual Arts, it was definitely a challenge financially because I'm like, oh man, I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
And, I graduated from working at Cinnabon to working at Staples. Right? So,
quite the promotion.
yeah, I was making $2 more, man. You kidding me?
It's real talk. No kids these days won't even, they'll scoff at that opportunity.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, but art supplies get really expensive, and so I had to just do whatever I could in order to get through school. And I knew that if I was able to get through school, that I'll be able to find a job, whether it's in the advertising field or design field or whatever. And so, I was fortunate enough. I just knew I just had to work my ass off, right?
I love it. I love it.
I had to work my ass off my college years, and fortunately, my junior year, I ended up getting awarded the biggest graphic design scholarship at the school. And so that helped pay for my senior year of college.
That's big time.
And so that changed everything. I mean, what also came with that scholarship was interning at Rolling Stone magazine that summer and Condé Nast. So that was it was a whole nother world that I was in. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy,
Oh, that first of all, it sounds, well, you mentioned Rolling Stone. We already know what time it is, right? At the end of the day, you just entered a whole nother ecosystem, right?
Oh man,
and the pop, central of all things, right? Well, with that experience, was that something that maybe immediately shifted something in relation to your confidence? Because I'm sure you're confident in your ability, your skill, you're growing, you're learning, and all these things, but there's a point in everybody's journey where we're like, all right, I think I really got something here. So was it that point, or what? Maybe did it come later?
Well, when I was going through school, I remember it was my sophomore year. I was taking a typography class.
Okay.
And my typography teacher one day, she just pulled me aside. She's like, hey, Jason, I just want to tell you that you have something. I was like, what? It's like, yeah, you have something in you. You're a born designer. And that put goosebumps through my body. I was like, really?
Yeah.
And so when more people started recognizing that and started telling me this stuff, I was like, I guess I just need to believe this thing.
Yeah.
And, not let these people down.
That's fantastic, bro. That's so, because I think that's the truth. That's more true in most people's experience than maybe we acknowledge, and whether they are true mentors or whether they were just people at an appointed time that breathed life into us and shaped us in a way where you could actually grab hold of how dynamic my gift really is, or how dynamic I am as a person. So that's absolutely amazing. So kind of getting into that, I know what I saw when we meet on LinkedIn. You know how it is. You go check folks out. You go do your quick little research, and I'm like, dude's artwork is this is like some old nanotechnology with graphic design. It was some of the. I still believe it's you kill it with the Knicks not too long ago, but how does that part of your style, at what point do you actually settle in and I actually have a branded form of art that's my own? That to me was really crazy.
Well, thanks. Well, I actually developed that style when I was in college, when I was at SVA. I remember bringing in, it was my sophomore year, I was bringing in a piece of work that was kind of mixed media, watercolor, tape, collage, and I showed it to my professor, and he was like, he paused for probably 30 seconds, just was looking at it, not saying a word. And then finally he looked up, he's like, you got something here. And then he goes, keep doing what you're doing. And then from there, I mean, that's another point. That was another professor that kind of said there was something there.
Yeah.
And so I went for it. And then I was like, oh, I can't let this dude down either. So I'm going to go,
I love how you actually you have a teammate mentality. Not a lot of professionals kind of adopt the mindset of I can't let this guy down.
Yeah.
That's super dope. in your evolution of how you actually stacked wins and built the foundation to move toward excellence. Like, that's my whole mentality. I think there's a lot of things that I do well, but the one thing I'm not going to do is let my teammate down.
Yeah.
Like, I'm far more socially motivated than I am intrinsically motivated. And I don't think it has to be a, either or thing. Like, but that's pretty dope that you acknowledge that. So, like, one thing I like to ask, like, in my opinion, when I see the work of Jayson Atianza, you work with the hottest brands. You've been featured in Complex magazine. I mean, when I say the hottest brands, I'm talking about with Vera Bradley, Nikes. I mean, like, I'm like, this dude has done it. And so, like, what was, we say catch the moment. Up to this point, and there's more to come, but what was your moment, like your crowning moment that either you're most proud of or that you like, okay, we here, baby?
Oh, man. I'd probably have to say when I got my job at BBDO, like, as soon as I got in.
Yeah.
And here's a funny story how I got in.
Oh, talk to me.
To BBDO. So yeah, after graduating SVA, I sent out my portfolio to all the different agencies that I wanted to work for. Yeah. And BBDO was one of them. And my one of my classmates that I graduated with, he ended up getting hired right out of school because he got the advertising scholarship when I got the graphic design scholarship, he got the advertising scholarship. And so he ended up getting hired there at BBDO. So one day, this was like maybe a couple months after graduating, he's already been working, and he's like, hey, come over, let's grab lunch, and I can show you my office, my little cubicle or whatever at the agency. So I went in afterwards, and so we're just hanging out talking, and one of his coworkers was there, and he goes, hey, by the way, have you popped into the creative recruiter's office? She's the one that I've been kind of like nagging every other week, calling, saying, hey, how's my portfolio doing? Are you hiring art directors yet? She's like, no, but call back in a couple weeks. And I would literally call back every other week, like just being a pain. And so she only knew me by my name, but never met me before. So he goes, hey, why don't you go to her office? It's right down the hallway, and just pop your head in there. So she knows at least who you are. Yeah. Right? So what I ended up doing was I got a bottle of Windex, a bunch of paper napkins, and his coworker escorted me down to the hallway. Okay. And right before I walked in, it was her and her assistant talking right after lunch. And right before I walk in, I take off my shirt, right? Okay. And I hand it to her, and I walk in to the office with the bottle of Windex and paper in hand, and I was like, hey, how's it going? I'm in here to clean your computer screens. They paused, they looked at each other, they looked at me, they're like, is this a joke? And I was like, look, lady, I was just told to come in and clean your screens. So I started cleaning her computer screen. After I was done, her assistant's like, hey, can you clean mine? I'm like, sure, where is it? It's right outside the hall. So I walk out. The girl holding my shirt is still standing there. She sees me go in. She's like, what are you doing? So I go in, I clean her computer screen, and I come back, and the two ladies come running out. They're like, oh my God, who is this guy? Who is this guy? And so I just bypass them, go back into her office, and I put a little napkin on her desk. She comes back, opens it up, and it says, compliments of Jayson Atienza. She goes, oh my God, you're Jayson Atienza? Yeah. You got a lot of balls.
Big balls, folks, big balls.
And so what ended up happening, she goes, you know what, let me see what I can do. I'll give you a call, next week. So literally after I left, I was told that like she took my portfolio, brought it into the executive creative director's office, put it on his desk, and she's just like, just look at it. He flipped through it, and he said, get him in here. And literally the next day, I got a call from her. She's like, hey, can you start today? I was like, can I start tomorrow? Because I'm wrapping up this freelance gig right now. And then, I mean, that's pretty much how my journey into advertising started.
Bro, I love it. Bro, you talk about creating opportunities. And that's whether it's your person, whether it's your skill, right? And obviously you had the belief in yourself, but you created that opportunity. That wasn't something that your portfolio created.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's like I just need to put this in front of the right people. So, because putting it in, you know, you can have the best portfolio ever, but if not the right people see it, it's not going to go anywhere. And the thing is too, like a lot of these, you know, the creative recruiters at agencies, there's hundreds of portfolios sitting in their office, like stacked. And I witnessed it. I was like, oh man, like, you know, I'm like, how are these people going to get through, you know? And so I just kind of just went for it. What did I have to lose?
That's fantastic. So that's, like I said, that's the moment that obviously begins to kick off your career. You know, so like in light of, you know, because I'm really, honestly, I'm like such a big fan of the style of art. Like, when does it begin to take shift? Because you're working within an advertising agency. When does your art begin to come outside of the business? Meaning, like, when is the company starting to show up? Like, who the heck is this Atienza guy? Can we, you know, like, so how does that part of being an employee as a creative guy to I'm Jayson Atienza, the boss?
It's kind of crazy because I have kind of two sides. I have like the advertising Jayson Atienza, and then I have the art Jayson Atienza. You know, and so when I started at BBDO, I actually stopped painting for like 2 years. Oh, because I wanted to, you know, create advertising work that would, you know, win awards and you know, like take my career to another place, right? Yeah, and. You know, so there was a lot of different people that I respected that, you know, that were doing a lot of amazing work for like Snickers, Pepsi, HBO, you name it. And
I got beef with Snickers. Let me get this real quick. So, you know, I'm sure Giants probably have some relationship with Snickers. They, you know, fun size Snickers, which is way better than the full size Snicker. And that's what they did, man. They did a fun size Snicker ad, and they had a peanut on top of the fun size joint. Like, man, y'all could have just, you know, threw your boy some money, get David Tyree in there with the Snicker bar. We could have made that happen, but no, they want to go get all creative. I hope that wasn't your idea.
No, it wasn't my idea, man.
Nah, man, talk to me, man. Talk to me about.
Yeah, so like my first 2 years in advertising, I wanted to make a name for myself creatively, and so I stopped painting, and you know, it was kind of, I guess you can say. Well, not that it was hard, but I just felt like, oh man, I felt like I was missing something. So as I was still creating like ad campaigns, you know, picking up a brush and all that, I just felt like I needed to do that again. Because I kind of lost my way. You know, I kind of like geared to it.
It's like Jedi. Direction. It's like a Jedi. You know, you came into corporate a little too, you leaned in too heavy.
Yeah, man. And so actually one of the creative directors kind of inspired me. I would walk by this creative director's office, and there was literally a pile of paintings on his desk, but he was never in there. So one day I finally popped my head in, and he was in there. He's like, "Hey, come sit down." You know, I was always the person that would just like pop into people's offices and start talking to them, like nice. You know, at the office. And so he gave me his little spiel that, you know, he's been in the business for 30 years, and the pile of paintings on his desk has been for the past 10 years. And, you know, he started out as an illustrator, but he stopped painting. And he said that, you know, when he got into advertising, he stopped painting for 20 years. And so this past 10 years of work that was on his desk was, you know, what he created. And he said that, you know, no matter what you do, don't ever stop painting. So literally the next day I applied back to, like, you know, the School of Visual Arts, to continuing ed classes, to paint on weekends, because the agency pays for, you know, whatever it is that you need,
nice. Like
to help like further you into you know, art direction. And so I took advantage of that. Absolutely. And then I got back into, you know, kind of developing my style that I'm known for, and kind of just created a whole body of work. And then from there, you know, having relationships with production companies, nice. That work with the advertising agencies, they wanted to do like, hey, we want to do a solo show of your stuff. And so from there, things started kind of snowballing into like all this other like opportunities with my art. Yep. And then, you know, I'd be on a shoot and someone would be like, we'd be kind of setting up a shot, and while we're setting up, I'm talking to the client. I'm like, yeah, by the way, I paint. They're like, oh, really? You're just showing your, like, oh, you know. And so that kind of thing, I started like going under the radar and you know, kind of putting myself out there. And then that's when things just started happening. You
Start
know?
snowballing.
Yeah.
Just sprinkling these glory seeds out into the mass.
You got to, man.
Well, listen, your work is like I said, is to me it's like the perfect blend of it's futuristic, but it also has like this organized element of like a little Picasso-ish, like you know. And I'm like, I'm not even like that deep into art, but I'm like, yo, this is dope, man. How can I get on Team Atienza, my boy? So you got so many accomplishments, twists and turns that, you know, I don't even know if we're gonna be able to capture them all. But I do got to double back right here, because the most intriguing thing when I kind of start looking into, you know, who you are and what you've done, I'm like, you're living in Shanghai, right? So. Yep. Like, bro, so, and I'm not talking about like you went to Shanghai. You lived in Shanghai for how long?
I lived in Shanghai for 6 years.
Bro, this thing is crazy. All right, so all right, tell me when this pivot happens, and you know, obviously, you know, there's a couple other monumental moments that we certainly got to get to, but talk to me about the pivot in Shanghai, what the experience was like, how you grew.
Oh man, so I, you know, after you know my 10-decade stint over at BBDO New York, I started freelancing, and you know, through those years as I was freelancing, I got an opportunity in early 2014. I get a call from Wieden and Kennedy, Portland, saying, "Hey, we have an opportunity. The only thing it's in China."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Oh damn, okay."
That's the proper response too.
And so I was like, "Let me get back to you and let me talk to my wife about this."
Yeah.
And so, so, you know, at the time, I mean, we were just newly married, didn't have any kids. And, you know, we had our honeymoon in Bali, and we, you know, when we were out there, we're like, oh, we need to be out in Asia more. And so when this opportunity came up to go out to China, we're like, all right, F it, let's do it.
Dope.
You know, and so even though we didn't understand the language and all that, I was like, you know what, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be super hard, but it's going to be an experience of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you only get those windows, and when those windows of opportunity come up, like, you just have to take it.
Yeah, so true.
And, you know, we felt like, you know, at least if anything, it would be a crazy experience, an adventure, and a crazy story probably, you know, we can tell to our kids.
What was the greatest, like, you know, like I said, 6 years there, and obviously, you know, you're getting established, doing business. What was the greatest takeaway, like, that either enhanced your career or your person from living and doing business in China?
Well, you know, so when I got out there, you know, I was brought out to be a creative director on the Nike account at Wieden.
Okay.
And so I was working on, you know, the campaigns for the China market.
Got it.
And, you know, I mean, that was definitely tough because I had to kind of just refigure like what I knew about advertising. And, you know, I remember one of the executive creative directors said to me, was like, whatever you know about advertising, throw it out the window. And I said, what?
Goodness gracious.
He's like, yeah, because this is China. I was like, and I go, oh man, okay.
Yeah.
So
what does that mean? And how does that, I mean, obviously it's a totally different country with different values. And so like, how does that shift your whole experience?
It's just, I guess the way things were presented, or the way like clients think, or, you know, there's a lot of little nuances that, you know, you wouldn't know unless you're there and actually living in the culture and really understanding like what their mentality is and how they think. And so, you know, that first year I was kind of just learning everything and just making all kinds of mistakes, you know, because you go into like, I remember going into China like a bull in a China shop, right?
No doubt.
And thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna bring in my New York mentality in here, blah blah blah. You know, if you can live in New York, you can live anywhere. But man, I got I got punched in the face how many times?
That's fantastic.
And so that really like woke me up. I remember someone told me that you know if you can work 18 hours a day here, you'll do well. And I said, what? And I was that's literally what happened the first like 6 months that I was there. And I barely saw my wife. and it was really hard.
All right, so I got it. That's one of those, under the cover. How was that for real? Because like we're talking a lot about how dynamic your career and accomplishments were, but from a person, well-being, relationship, namely your wife, how does that affect, this journey? Was that a rocky phase for you?
Yeah, I would say it was probably like one of my most rocky phases because I felt like I lost myself. Even my wife told me that like I lost myself when I first got to China because I didn't know who I was. Right, so I had to figure it out. And through all like the mistakes that I was making and just all the different things that was happening during that time. I mean, things were changing. I mean, they didn't embrace like the foreigners coming in there, the expats.
Okay.
But, I felt like I was in my own bubble trying to figure out what China was. But I made a mistake that, like I was trying to make it what it's not.
Okay.
And until someone told me that, like, you know what, when you come here, just embrace the culture and you'll be less frustrated than you trying to change the culture.
There you go.
And so when I thought about it, I was like, oh man, let me try that. Right?
You gotta ride the wave instead of going against the grain.
Yeah. And then because people would do certain things and I would be frustrated because it wasn't the right way that it should be done.
Yeah.
But, then once I started embracing the culture and, how things are done a lot differently, even though it's not the way I want to do it, but it's just the way like it is out there.
There you go.
So things started happening,
Good.
and it took over a year for me to realize that and, experience all that. Because a lot of times, a lot of expats go out there to work. They don't last a year because of the frustrations of the culture and everything.
Terminology, what's expats?
Expatriate.
Dumb jock. There you go.
Like not from, like was living in the U.S. now is.
Got it. Now living in a foreign country.
Yeah.
I bet. I'm not the one that can act like I know.
No, it's all good, man.
No, that's really amazing, man. So, I'm gonna get back into, I want to get back into like I said, let's call them some top three, whether it's pieces, moments. But before I do that, like it's easy to focus so much on what somebody does, but like who is Jayson Atianza, right? So when you're an artist, it's easy to kind of get into the background, get back into your creative spaces, and like your work speaks for you instead of you maybe speaking for you. So ultimately, although you have these like reigning accomplishments, what makes you whole? Like I said, now you have a wife, a family. How do you maintain stability? What's your ecosystem that allows you to thrive and be your best you? Who is that?
Who is that? I mean, my wife, my little kids, just kind of being fortunate enough to like wake up every morning with them and kind of just seeing them. I'm like, oh man, whatever I have to do, even if I'm afraid to do something, like I just need to do it for my family. And
that's where the motivation.
Yeah, and I think, it's just one of those things that I feel that you need something to kind of like help justify like why you do certain things or why you push hard. You know what I mean? And so they're the ones that really like, they're like the North Star for me.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Nice.
And so yeah, I mean, family's everything, and being able to, see them grow up and, hopefully like inspire them to, go follow their passions or whatever they want to do.
No, that's fantastic. That's dynamic. So how long you been married and how old are your children?
We've been, my wife and I, we've been married 10 years. We just had our wedding anniversary.
There you go. Got the diamond, baby.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go.
I'm a big celebrator of that, man. Just committed people, healthy is healthy for you, healthy for the kids and the children. 2 children, right?
Yeah, 2 children. My son just turned 4 and my daughter's 20 months old.
Oh, yeah, y'all grinding.
Yeah.
All right.
We're in it. We're in the thick of things, man.
Y'all are in it, man. So I'm OG Papa over here, my oldest 20, youngest 8. So I want to get back to, kind of that piece. Like what has been, I think as I'm listening to more of your story, it's like, man, you've had a lot of like, I don't want to call them like pivots, but a lot of moments that I'm sure are filled with meanings. What have been some of those, whether they're, like I said, the Shanghai experience or a commission piece, or give me a couple of those that are like some of your more impactful, prouder moments that, you know, and maybe what was some of the meaning behind that, what that meant to you?
Oh man, well, first, when I ended up becoming a full-time artist in China, that's kind of like one of the pivots. Like after leaving Wyden and working on my own, and finally kind of jumping headfirst into becoming an artist, like a full-time artist.
Full-time.
That was scary, but at the same time, like I just needed to do it.
Yeah.
And it was one of my first clients. I mean, you know, my dream come true Nike client came, like it had nothing to do with me working at Wyden on Nike for them to come to me to say, hey, we want to collaborate with you on a project.
Dope.
It had something, you know, after I left advertising and just started kind of doing my own thing, and trying to create something within, you know, Shanghai, just anything. I just picked up any kind of thing, whether it's you know, doing a collaboration with a juice or doing like a little office mural. Or whatever. So just starting to put my art out there, and then, you know, more traction started coming, and then all of a sudden Nike calls and says, "Hey, we saw your stuff. You know, we'd love to collaborate with you."
Fantastic.
And that literally changed everything, because that first assignment was to do a mural, to do the facade for their Nike Kicks Lounge store in Shanghai, their first one.
That's tight.
And, you know, I was like, man, I need to like crush this assignment, because after that, then, you know, things will start rolling in. And I did. I killed myself to like make this thing happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, just like work night and day until, you know, it was complete. But then right after that, the design director of retail was like, oh man, you did a great job. I have another assignment for you, but it's a long shot. I was like, all right, cool.
Okay. And
he said that, you know, this project, the team has been working on it for the past 4 months, but you know, it would be for Jordan. And so,
oh my God.
So they're like, so because, you know, he's like, yeah, they're building the biggest Jordan store in Asia, in Beijing. And so this was the assignment. And he said that like the team that Jordan brought on to work on it, they weren't, you know, they wasn't
getting it done.
Yeah, they weren't liking the stuff that was being presented. Yeah. So he's like, hey, why don't you throw in some ideas and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Literally, like a couple days later, I presented some work. He's like, oh, these are great. Presented it to the Jordan Global team, and they loved it. They're like, go do it. And so I was like, oh man, this is crazy. I just got off a Nike thing. Now I'm doing a Jordan thing. And so I was like, oh, by the way, who was the team or studio that was working on this thing that didn't come through? He was like, oh, do you know Ai Weiwei? He's one of the most like prolific like Chinese artists.
Oh yeah, you know, I don't know. Yeah. I know Jayson Atienza. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
So he's like, yeah, well, it was him in his studio that worked on it. Well, you kind of just took it from them. I'm like, oh, okay. Thank you.
Knocking down giants out here, brother.
I was like, wow, that's crazy. I can't even believe that.
I don't know him well enough to know whether it was a Giants Patriots moment, but you know, it's kind of you know, it's feeling like some of that kind of energy. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, man. and that's when things started rolling. And as I was doing more projects, you pretty much, once you're in the Nike
ecosystem, brother,
you're getting passed around to all different departments. And
boy, they was working you like a tide hooker.
That was just like a whole nother level of like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
Bro, because people don't get it. Every brand has so much value these days, but in our era, Nike was it. Yeah. Like, you know, like those 90s, I'm like, I'm still stuck on, for the most part, I rock a nice pair of kicks and, you know, a couple other random brands, but it's still Nike for me. I'm still stuck. I'm like,
yeah, I mean, same here, man. I mean,
yeah, that's trust me, I like totally get it. So now we're talking Nike. Obviously Jordan, that's kind of like next level, right? Like that. I mean, that's a mountain, because even though they're within the same ecosystem, definitely a totally different leap up to work with the Jordan brand.
Yeah.
All right, so we mentioned this offline. You got to bring me back to this. Like, you go on your site, you see all these pieces, but we might not make all the connection. And there's an Obama piece in there.
Yeah.
So talk to me about how that came together. You know, were you in Shanghai or
no? I was still living in New York City.
Okay.
It's January 2009. You know, Obama gets elected first black president. You know, in the U.S.
Fire.
Everyone is just on fire. Yeah, I mean, everyone is super excited. So there was this gallery show called Manifest Hope that was being put together.
Okay.
And from all the artists from around the U.S. Kind of like supporting, Obama and just like gathering around to kind of celebrate his inauguration.
Yeah.
And so I was fortunate to be able to be a part of that. I mean, one of my boys, he hooked me up with the curator of that show. Like last minute, and said, "Hey, you need to get Jason in here." And like so at the time I was, still freshly dating my wife, who was my girlfriend back then.
Okay, no doubt.
I remember being at the LaGuardia Airport waiting for my flight to Cleveland because I was spending Christmas with her family, and so I was painting like Obama's portrait, like. In the midst of this, yeah, and dude, it was wild, man. But it was like one of those last minute things. I was like, you know what, I just need to do this. I'm not gonna sleep. I'm just gonna make it happen. And then from there, I was able to create it and ship the piece down to DC for the show. Yeah. And so me and my wife and some friends, we drove down to DC to be part of the whole manifest. Yeah, yeah, man. I mean, it was wild because one of my like influencer like artists from like all over. I mean, like Shepard Fairey, who started the whole the Hope campaign with Obama, that kind of like kickstarted everything with all that stuff. And then being a part of that with all these other amazing artists from around the U.S. Was just like a dream come true. I mean, it was another mind-boggling moment. Like, I can't even believe I'm here. You know what I mean?
Brother, it's surreal. Like like I said, obviously. I share a lot of just affection for your work and of course when you got that Jersey grit, like I kind of understand that people don't get it when I say why I kind of feel so passionate about Jersey because in so many different ways it's like the stepchild to New York City, right? Like so we get ragged on. Yep. Turnpike smells of putrid, and you were over there in Jersey City for a while in your years growing up, but it's surreal when you come from that little garden state, that little sliver, but you got the grit, the determination, and the posture. Not that that's not happening in other places, but and now you're right here manifesting hope, and like one of the greatest moments of you're a part of that in even some small way. Like how does that, like, I know your kids are so young to the point where they don't have a clue, which is good sometimes too, but like, what is going to be your proudest thing? And there's more to come, but what is your proudest thing to like
that I've created? Yeah. My kids.
Boom. That's a bar. I hope everybody heard that.
That's probably anything that I create will never like overpass, creating my kids. Yeah. With my best friend, my wife,
That's fantastic, man. Because you see, I kind of feel the same way. That's why I had 7 of them. I'm like, I'm like, well, my wife is hot. I like her a lot, and getting pretty good at dropping these babies off. But no, it really is the ultimate give back, right? Like the ultimate surreal rush of understanding that not only did you create something with such beauty, and I'm talking about, we got some trials in the human experience. Just a safe, healthy child is a gift. But when you see them, they're yours. Yeah. It's like, wow. And
I still can't believe it. I'm like, wow, we have 2 kids. I mean, my mom, she was the oldest of 11 kids. Yeah. And my dad he was the second oldest. He had 6 sisters. I mean, I'm not even kidding you. I have like 50 first cousins like on my mom's side. Bro. That I haven't met like
that's a cartel, man.
75% of them. It's crazy.
That's a cartel, man. Y'all legal, right? I just want to make sure. Nah, you good. That's crazy, bro.
Yeah, it's wild, but like for us to have like 2 healthy baby boy and baby girl,
Yeah.
you know, is a blessing, and you know, we're so fortunate.
So your different, you know, your different depots, your journey, you know, and even better, just your faith, that idea of just looking for a new experience, taking that risk, betting on yourself. That's so clear to me. But like, you've been tread with some adversity, right? So, you know, we meet each other right in the middle of the pandemic. And I think you was in like Ohio at the time. Talk to me how you almost, like, you guys spewed out of.
Oh man. So yeah, I mean, you know, we pretty much got plucked out of China because of COVID.
Yeah.
You know, it was January 2020. It was right when we were getting back from, we took a holiday trip over to Vietnam. I clearly remember this. It was January 3rd. And,
that's my birthday.
Oh, yeah?
Bet.
Oh, snap.
What's going on January 3rd? I hope.
That's what's up.
No doubt. We in the building.
And so literally, because I played basketball, pick up basketball over at the Nike campus in Shanghai. And so I decided, I'm going to go play some ball like the day after we get back. And literally, so I go over, I jump up for a rebound, I land on someone's foot, and my knee snaps, my knee pops.
What?
I end up getting ACL and meniscus repair. So I was out for that whole year.
Really?
During COVID. Yeah, it was terrible. I was like, man, 2020, this is the most terrible year ever. Like,
you're an aging athlete, Jay.
Oh man, it was wild.
That sucks.
So that happened. So I'm in the hospital after getting operated on. I turn on the news and it's like, there's been this infection in Wuhan, China. 42 people. Blah blah blah.
Starts bubbling.
And I was like, yeah, whatever. I turn it off. Right. I get home and it's like, now that 42 people has been now like 400 people infected, we're gonna lock down the whole city of Wuhan, of 20 million people. We're like, oh damn, okay,
man, 20 million in Wuhan.
Yeah, and then literally the next day it was like from like 400 to like 1,000, over 1,000 people infected. So now they're locking down 60 million people in the province where Wuhan is in Hubei province.
Wow.
And so at that moment, me and my wife were like, we need to get the F out of here because we can't get locked down, because at the time my wife was 10 weeks pregnant.
Oh snap.
Yeah, she was 10 weeks pregnant with our daughter.
The COVID Chronicles be real, bro.
Yeah. So literally we got a one-way ticket to Ohio where my in-laws are. And so like 2 weeks after my knee operation, I mean, I was literally on like,
so you fresh
thinners.
Off of ACL surgery.
Oh my God. I was getting injected in my stomach with needles for like the blood thinner for the flight.
Oh, wow.
Because,
no pills?
No pills.
Sheesh.
Yeah, it was probably one of the most painful things I ever had to do. So we leave, we get to LAX as a connecting flight, and no one's checking temperatures or anything like that. And me and my wife and our son, we're wearing masks.
Oh, snap.
And people are looking at us like we're like crazy and like, what the heck are you doing? Like, you guys are weird. And we're like, do you know what is coming this way?
Do you know what's happening? Bro.
No one knew. No one cared. Whatever.
Not at all.
Nothing.
So this is in January.
January.
Wow.
It was January 31st. I remember, because that day we were at the airport, and then we look up at one of the monitors, and it said like, yeah, D Trump, whatever. He's like announcing that they're closing the borders to China.
Yep.
And so we just got there, like the day that we landed.
Oh snap, bro.
Yeah. So we're like, oh my God.
So you slid in the home plate.
We slid in, and then we get to Ohio. People are like, why are you wearing masks? You're not sick. We were getting all kinds of whatever, and we're like, oh my God.
Getting beat up for being safe.
Yeah. And people still didn't know, because it was like,
took a while.
January, February. And it wasn't until like
February we were still like,
people were still traveling and, doing stuff. And it wasn't until like March, like mid-March, people were like, oh, well, we need to take this seriously, because people were dropping like flies.
Well, I know it was March, because it was, when the NBA, it was, America was all, we about our sports. Once them NBA players got hit, and I'll never forget it. I feel like it was Gobert.
Gobert, yeah, Rudy.
Gobert.
Yep.
And it might have been like it was still a little bit of, he was gagging, and then it was like a week later, boom, shut everything down.
Yeah.
NBA shut down the season. It was like, oh, okay. We in bad shape, bro.
Oh, man. And then that was around the time that, I ended up I'd renewed my passport. We drove down to DC to renew my passport because we couldn't, because we had to go to a Chinese consulate that was only open in DC. So we had to go there to get our new papers because we were planning to fly back end of March. Because when we left in January, we were like, oh, we're going to leave and come back in a couple months and see what happens. And literally the day we were about to fly, China closes their borders to anyone coming in from anywhere. Dang. And so if we took that flight, we would have been stuck in Tokyo.
Bro.
And yeah, so that happened, and we ended up staying in Ohio, living in my in-laws' basement for a year and a half. We only thought we were only going to be there for a couple months.
Ooh, baby! I thought I had it rough. I got my own COVID chronicle. We ain't going.
Yeah, it was challenging because love the in-laws and all, but our life was taken away from us.
100%.
And so coming from Shanghai to Ohio is a whole it's night and day.
Oh my goodness. And I can't even I can't even see it. God bless Ohio, but I know it ain't Shanghai.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. The creativity. Just everything. I'm sure a lot of people were going through all kinds of stuff too.
Oh yeah,
everyone
absolutely.
was going through everything through COVID.
Yes.
Everybody.
No doubt.
But for us, we were just like, all right, you know what? We're just gonna stay put here until things get a little bit better, and then we just decided you know what? We need to just go out west.
Okay.
So that's when we moved out here to Vegas last summer.
Man,
because we needed to get our life back.
Definitely change scenery. Like y'all here.
Yeah.
But I found it to be the most profound thing, man. Just number one, of course, taking some risk, career, new opportunities, created opportunities. But there's nothing like having to endure something that you really weren't prepared for. Now you got your family in the saddle, and just kind of climbing your way out. So it proved to me, man, your work resume has already proved, what kind of skill engineer you are. But when you managing life, family in the midst of it, so what has it taught you about yourself? And has it been any kind of as you've now arrived back in this budding city? Vegas is really about to hit his prime. Although Vegas has always been Vegas, but now we're starting to see crazy industry, sport. Web3. It's Vegas is looking like the next.
It's definitely a different Vegas than when I was here, because I was coming out here for the past 4 years, even when I was living in China during CES.
Okay.
Because a lot of my clients would come out here for stuff, and I would do some collaborations for technology brands, and so kind of started falling in love with Vegas, and just starting to know the city more. Right. And so it wasn't one of those things where I was like, oh, where are we gonna go?
Yeah.
So at least somewhere that we're familiar with, and then on top of that, I think Vegas has the biggest Chinatown in the U.S.
Get out of here!
Miles long.
How have I never heard of that? But you know what? I ain't heard of nothing. Let me just be honest. I'll be over here.
Spring Mountain. There's so many. I feel that there's a little bit of China in Vegas, because there's things are big.
Yeah.
And there's a big Asian community here.
That's tight.
And so I didn't feel like we were leaving Asia. We were still
you found your community in the community.
Yeah.
It's friggin' dope.
And so, and then I know that we always thought about moving out to California when we got back to the US, but with things going on and the prices and everything, those guys, they're moving out this way. And so, we love the desert. We love just being by the mountains, and
nice.
And we just thought that Vegas was a good fit, because we'd still be in the suburbs, right outside of Vegas, in Henderson area.
No doubt.
But if you wanted a little bit of, whatever, we can hit the strip.
Hit the strip. Trust me, they got everything you want out here. They ain't got that much that I want, but they definitely got everything you want out here. So, kind of wrapping this through, man. So talk to me about, actually there's, I always got to get to this is the fun moment for me, in light of us growing up in Jersey, having New York City roots and those things. where were you when you saw the helmet catch, Super Bowl 42, and any story or context that you have related to that moment?
Oh man, you know what? There's this editing company in New York. They always throw these big Super Bowl parties because a lot of times BBDO, like, they would use this editing company to like cut all their like Super Bowl spots.
Okay.
And so they threw this big Super Bowl party, and I remember the big screen, and like there was all these seats. There was like, all kinds of food and drinks, and people were talking and all this other stuff. And I remember me and a couple of friends like sat down. We're like, oh man, there's only a couple minutes left or whatever, and like I don't know where this is gonna go, right? And literally, when you made that catch, beers were being thrown up in the air. I got wet with beer, like everyone went berserk.
It's crazy.
That moment, I'll never forget that moment and that feeling when that happened, because we knew like, oh man, from there that
we got this.
Yeah, and that feeling, I can still feel that feeling that I felt when you caught that on your head.
Yeah, no doubt.
Helmet. And it was just one of those things where like, oh man, especially being a Giants fan and coming up and just seeing your home team kind of just do their thing, and oh man, that it was amazing.
That's so dope. I've always enjoyed the stories because, like I said, for me, all these moments, right, and these moments that you've accrued through your experience, through your craft, through your skills, they have meaning attached to them. And it's like you said, the feeling, and that's what excellence and achievement, it inspires. So, man, I just want to thank you just for, paving this pathway through your art, your life, your perseverance, man. Like everything that I've known you to be over the last couple of years is like super duper inspiring. Because I told you, I've been that dude. I feel like I've been living in a bunker in this, not in the sports world, but in like the real life world. Like I'm the everyday man's champion because I don't live a fabricated life. And but like I said, people like you prove to me how every life inspires, and everybody's more than just their moment, man. So, man, thanks so much for sharing so much of your story with us, bro.
I appreciate it, brother.
Nah, man, like you're like I said, you're definitely at the forefront of your industry, and I know there's this is the age of the creator, and you stand out as a giant amongst the rest, man. So appreciate your life, your story, man. Thanks for coming to being a guest with us, man.
Thank you, man.